Today on Cryptic Mass Guitar, we do a comparison between the Epiphone Les Paul Custom and the Gibson Les Paul Studio. Now the Studio that I'm using here is a 2013 model, which is surprisingly made in 2012. All of the specs are the exact same as the current. However, this has a granadillo fretboard rather than rosewood, but you can't really tell. And instead of Grovers, we have the Gibson, actually these are Kluson Deluxe, vintage deluxe tuners. I would also like to say, I know what the comments are going to be, the top 3 comments at least. The first of which, because it's Gibson versus Epiphone, the Epiphone is way better than Gibson. Gibson's just overpriced and Epiphone's amazing. QC issues, QC issues. And then the second one's going to be Gibson's way better than Epiphone. Epiphone's so cheap. Epiphone's custom shops in China. Everything's made in China with Epiphone. I like spending more money, and QC issues, QC issues. They both had them. And of course the third one's just going to be the guy in the background that goes, they both suck. But I do have 5 sound samples for you today, the first of which is going to make everybody happy. We're going to play clean with the bridge, middle, and then neck positions. Then we're going to move our way up the ladder with sound samples, ending on full on metal. It is this channel after all, so we kind of got to have that. But I also want to state that YouTube videos are fantastic for, you know, getting a different perspective, being able to actually hear both guitars against each other, or hear the guitars, or just see the guitars in action. But sound is only, like, I would say, personally, I would say about 30% of the overall picture. The rest of it, other than, you know, 5%, and I like that guitar, it looks cool, but the rest of the percentage there has got to do with feel. How the guitar feels in your hands, how the guitar bonds with you. So don't let some goofball like me tell you what guitar to buy, or don't buy a specific guitar just because maybe you thought I made it look cool or sound good or something like that, or I don't know, I'm an idiot sometimes. But make sure you go and play the guitars for yourself. That's the best way of actually finding out if the guitar is right for you. See if you bond with it. Play all of the guitars that are in the store. That way, you know, you might find different guitars really surprise you. All right, so there you go. There are the 5 sound samples in the comparison between the Epiphone Les Paul Custom and the Gibson Les Paul Studio. So it's at this point in the video where I like to go over kind of the similarities and the differences and stuff like that. And I will make note of what this is and what the current model is. So we're looking at Les Paul bodies. They're full-size Les Pauls. This is a little thinner by millimeters. But that means we have a mahogany slab body with a carved maple top on top of it. It just so happens that the Les Paul Custom here has binding on the front and on the back, which is always cool. The Les Paul Studio here does not have any binding. However, what is really cool, this one at least has the like fake Paul Reed Smith binding. Because the maple cap here is a little different color than the slab of mahogany, it looks like there's a bit of a binding going on there. Both have set mahogany necks that also have slim taper neck carve. The Les Paul Custom, being a Les Paul Custom, has an ebony fretboard with the block inlays, and this Les Paul Studio here has a granadillo fretboard. Now, nowadays you would get a rosewood fretboard. I cannot, for this one here, tell the difference whatsoever. Usually granadillo can be a little drier and a little lighter. That's not the case with this one. But it has the trapezoid inlays. The Epiphone has a bound fingerboard where the Gibson does not. Looking at the headstock here, the Epiphone has the inlaid Epiphone logo and the inlaid diamond logo, whereas the Gibson has silkscreened Gibson logo and the silkscreened Les Paul model logo. Tuner-wise, we're looking at Grover Rotomatics. Actually, they're not Grover. They're Wilkinson Grover style, basically the Rotomatics. They feel the same to me. I actually did not know that they were Wilkinson until I looked at the back of them and saw, hey, this is Wilkinson, not Grover. The Les Paul here, this one, the Studio has the Kluson Vintage Deluxe tuners. However, nowadays they actually come with Grover Rotomatic tuners. As far as weight, the Les Paul Custom here, the Epiphone, is heavier than the Les Paul Studio. However, I do have to state, I don't know actually that this is not weight relieved. It feels like it's not weight relieved. I mean, it's the body on it is thinner, like ever so, like millimeters thinner than the other ones. So it's kind of hard to tell. I can tell that it's heavier than this one, but it could be some sort of 9-hole weight relief. I can't really narrow it down, but it feels like it is not weight relieved. This one right here, the Studio, it is weight relieved. It has the modern weight relief or ultra modern, whatever they want to call it nowadays. So if you were to take the maple top off here, you would actually see that the mahogany has a whole ton of like routings and holes and stuff like that in the body. What that does is it makes the guitar lighter and actually adds a little more resonance to what you feel. And yeah, just doesn't break your back like perhaps some people say that non-weight relieved Les Pauls do. And I have a bad back and I like the non-weight relieved because I'm a man. Pickup wise, the Epiphone Les Paul Custom has the ProBucker 3 and ProBucker 2, which are fantastic pickups. They're a little more on the vintage side, so they're not as hot as over here, but they're very accurate and they're very well balanced. I don't see any reason why you may want to upgrade them other than personal preference. On the Les Paul Studio here, we have the 498T and the 490R. The 498 is definitely a hotter pickup, much hotter than this. So you probably heard the difference in the sound comparison because I did not adjust the amp settings from one guitar to another, so they were all kind of tailored towards the Epiphone. The Studio has push-pulls, and it's basically to give you what is it, coil splitting or coil tapping? I think it's splitting, I don't know. But what that does is it turns each pickup into sort of like a P90. Some people like it. I'm not a big fan of it. I prefer to have it as just an alternate option. But I do find that, you know, if it does sound like a P90, it's like a hollow P90. Bridge-wise, we're looking at the Epiphone Locktone Tunematic and stop bar, but it's not like the cheaper ones, so when you adjust the intonation, it's not going to start buzzing. It's all good. Although you do break a lot of high E strings, I do have to say. But the Gibson here has the Nashville style tunematic and stop bar. Both of the bridges are fantastic. You have 2 volumes and 2 tones on both of them. Of course, I did state that the Studio has push-pulls for each pickup. The Epiphone here has CTS pots, tan wired, whereas the Gibson actually has PCB connections with Gibson branded pots. Now, please don't be like those people out there and think that because it's a PCB, your guitar is a computer. That's not the case. It's just a cost-saving alternative to paying someone in the USA to hand solder your guitars. It's more of a premium pricing in the USA versus in China. And of course, final thing to talk about, this is like a polygloss, and this is actually a glossed nitro. So there's a little bit of a different feel to it, but I do have to say this, the guitar itself, it does have me kind of doing, because you know when you get a little bit more resistance, a little more feel to it, I find, with the gloss nitro finish. I keep rubbing my finger on this one and the SG Standard that I rented for a while, just to feel it, because it kind of feels like it might be, you know, a Gibson or what have you. It's a little different. Some people don't like the nitro finish, some people do. Usually in this portion of the video, I like to kind of go over, you know, each guitar individually. I'm not going to do that because they really do have the same kind of, can't really say feel, but like sitting in my lap and stuff like that, there's not going to be much difference balance-wise. They're both well-balanced guitars. They're not really neck heavy, or you're not going to get a ton of neck dive and stuff like that. The positioning of the 3-way toggle switch and the potentiometers, they're all the same. So I can't really do that. But I do want to speak to this guitar and this guitar price-wise. So basically, you can get this new for generally what you find this used for. So that's why I'm doing this comparison here. So if you're curious, that's probably why you're watching this video. So a lot of people are going to ask, is it better to get the Epiphone or is it better to get the Gibson? And really, it's up to you. Whether you find that the Epiphone works better for you with, you know, heavier weight, or the pickups themselves being less hot, stuff like that. Of course, you can always change pickups, or if you want to have a real Gibson or what have you. Personally, I mean, I own 2 Les Paul Studios, and I don't own any Epiphones. That's a personal preference kind of a deal. I think this is a fantastic guitar, and I think this is a great guitar as well. So my opinion is just literally going to be, I like the Gibson more. I feel a little more bite when I'm playing, and this feels a little dull to me. That could just be me being crazy kind of a deal. So it's all up to you. Don't let someone tell you, like if you go out and you play this and you think it's awesome, you play this and you don't think it's awesome, you like this more than this and you buy this, that's the right thing to do. If some douche canoe down the street goes, ha, you bought an Epiphone, that's not real. It's a real guitar, and it's what works for you. That's the way to do things. So yeah, it's really up to you. Best thing to do is play it in the store. Thanks for watching.